I was drawn to economics in general, initially thinking about problems of global poverty, and saw early on in the 1970s the issue that in a finite planet we weren't going to get everybody out of poverty and up to a standard of living like middle-class US, given finite resources. I didn't know that something called ecological economics existed until much later, probably in the 1980s sometime. And then I'd already started working on feminist economics, looking at how things associated with women had been neglected in mainstream economics. And it struck me immediately that nature and women have gotten similar treatment. They're supposed to be self-perpetuating while invisibly supporting the so-called economic system of markets and business. So there was immediate affinity with ecological economics and my work on gender. Depends on if you're thinking about like status within the profession. It is marginalized, as anything that is critical of the mainstream is at this point. I think it's got both a strength and a weakness. Is its the wide range of disciplines of the people that contribute to it. I think mainstream economics has gotten narrowed around one paradigm. Ecological economics, maybe at this point, kind of suffers from the opposite problem of having too many different ways of looking at things. And as I also found in the feminist work, people who spend a long time being critical of something can tend to get a little bit set in their ways and be a little bit obstreperous to deal with. So I'm hoping as new generations of ecological economists come up, they can take the best of what's coming out of all of the different fields and leave off some of the old, tired arguments that could die with the people that have been proposing them. Well, one of the most obvious areas where there's a close parallel is in things like GDP accounting. That in the U.S. system of national accounts, the services of the house are counted in GDP. But not the services of anything that goes on inside the house. Any of the childcare, any of the cooking, any of the cleaning, any of that sort of thing. And it's not a matter of measurable or not measurable. The services of the house are imputed from rents of similar houses in the area. It's all an imputed value. And as we have time use surveys coming up, there's less and less reason to not think about counting these kinds of things in. And then similarly, of course, any sort of depletion of natural resources isn't accounted for in the national accounts, degradation of resources. In general, any keeping of the sort of underlying asset base of the economy, be that human or mineral or plant, is just totally neglected. I hope it will keep up a constant pressure on the mainstream of economics to take into account the social and natural embeddedness of economic activity. I mean, that's just a huge glaring error. I think as issues like climate change and biodiversity become more pressing, it will become more and more obvious where mainstream economics, including in its very mainstream environmental variants, comes short on that. I'm a little concerned, and my talk at this conference is about the dangers of flipping from being very mainstream neoclassical to just taking an oppositional view. If they're about competition, we're about cooperation. If they're about global, we're about local. If they're about this, we have to be about that. I see some of that going on in this conference. I see some people that are starting to work beyond that. And my hope is that ecological economics will stop working with the old arguments based on those dualisms and think more pragmatically and empirically about what needs to be done to get to a more sustainable economy. I have seen it at this conference compared to the ISSEE that I went to last year, a little bit more talking among people. It's very easy when you get people coming from all these different backgrounds, just have people talk past each other without engaging much. And some of that has been going on here, but I have seen a little bit more attempt of people to actually talk to each other. I'm really pleased to see a lot of relatively younger people here, graduate students and young faculty, young activists. For a while it seemed like it might just be the same group of people that started it would be the major energy, and I'm glad to see that there seems to be some transitioning along those lines. The glaring neglect of ecological issues in standard understanding of economics, both academic, journalistic, policymaking. That to me, part of the journey would be to make those part of every economic discussion, and that has not happened.